Hi, I'm Karen Troyce from KT Wearable Art. Welcome to my studio here in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I want to introduce you to my polymer cane extruders, new and improved. And these polymer cane extruders, I want to show you how you can use them to cut perfect slices of polymer clay canes without distortion. How frustrated do you sometimes get when you worked hours on creating a kaleidoscope cane or some intricate cane, only to slice them and have them distorted? Well, I'm going to show you my polymer cane extruders and how you can use them to make perfectly cut slices of polymer cane. They each have 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch increments on them, or about 2 millimeters. And so I'm going to show you how you can use these to create perfect slices of canes, polymer canes. And so let me put these aside, and I'm going to demonstrate to you how you can use these. We're going to start with this large round one. The tubes are hollow. I'm going to mist it. I'm going to do it right over the garbage can, but use a small mister, a fine mist of water. You're going to add your polymer canes. Now, I've made plugs for each of these out of polymer clay, and it's not necessary, but it does aid when you have a multicolored polymer cane. For instance, let's say I want to use a multicolored, this one is just scrap clay, but if you're using the scrap clay in here, it might be a little harder to see. And so what I have done is created little plugs to offset the color. And so once you mist it, the water aids in sliding the polymer clay through, and the plug helps you to visualize against the white background the different increments as you're pushing it through. Here I've created this patterned large round cane, and you want to make sure that you have it to size before you insert it. And your tube always needs to be misted, so if you find that it's drying, mist it from both ends and reduce your cane to fit. You don't want to start with a square cane, obviously, but I have tried that and have gotten them stuck. So make sure that you always have it misted. Otherwise, if you don't have it properly misted, your cane will get stuck. I suggest you practice with an old cane first until you get the hang of it. And so once your cane extruder is misted, I'm going to insert it from the end that has less of the markings on it. I'm going to insert it in there, and if you decide to put a plug in there, you put that in, and then you compress it. You don't want to overly compress it either, otherwise it will get stuck. You just need to compress it slightly. Now this can slide out very easy, but you notice the cane is in there. And at this point you want to use a sharp, not flexible, but firm blade. I have 3 sizes here, and none of these are flexible like some of the other ones, but this one is a little too large. It is usable, but you want to use it closer to the end of where your handle is, otherwise you don't have enough stability. So I'm going to put that one aside and use one of the smaller ones, and this one's a little small, so I'm going to use this medium-sized one. Make sure your blade is clean. And at this point, your first slice will always be a throwaway slice. So you can let go of the back and you can hold on to the tube and just make sure your edge is the proper edge, and then you can just slice off that first slice. Because it tends to be a little wonky, you might be able to use it, but you get perfectly thin slices. Now at this point, you can determine how much of your cane you want to slice off, if you want them paper thin or if you want them larger. And so I'm going to make sure my surface is clean from the water, free from water, because some water may come out, which is okay. Just make sure that your clay is dry and your surface is dry. And make sure it's compressed to where the edge is nice and uniform. And you can use the back of your hand and hold on to the tube, and with the back of your hand you're going to do a little motion. You're going to squeeze out as much or little as you want. If you find out you pushed out too much, you can put it back in and then just tap it down, and it will sometimes come out on its own, and you can push how much or little you want. And you can start off with following the guide here from the back, or you can use the front of the cane extruder. If you're not using the guides, you can just visually use how much you want to extrude if you only want paper thin slices. But if you want more accurate slices, use the back of the cane extruder and use either the white or the blue, or here in this case blue, whatever color, usually a darker baked plug. Don't forget to bake it. Or you could use it unbaked, but I usually like to use the baked plug. And at this point you just extrude, and then once you have as much as you want, you can just slice and push that aside. And then you can continue as fast or slow as you want. I'm going to continue to just cut slices of this off. Now this is a Kato claim, which is a lot harder. If you're using a softer Sculpey, your cane slices will slice off a little softer. And if you need to, you can let go of the back and just hold on to the tube and with your finger push down. The larger ones are a little harder to slice, but you will get perfect cane slices. It may take you a little practice, but they're uniform and they're not distorted. If you just thin it out a little bit with your fingers, you can fill. I'm going to take the better side of this sliced cane and put it in there. And what you want to do at this point is to take a piece of scrap clay and fill that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remist the tube, take a piece of scrap clay that is sized, insert it, and I put in my plug, slightly compress. Now I'm going to assume that I'm going to need at least a 1/4 of an inch of a plug, and so I'm going to figure out these are each individually 1/16 of an inch increments. So 1, 2, 3, 4 should equal about a 1/4 of an inch. But instead of eyeballing it here, I'm going to eyeball it from the back side. And I'm going to figure out where my eye needs to look. So I need to cut 1, 2, 3, 4 of these up to there. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to guesstimate. I'm going to need about a 1/4 of an inch. Perfectly round and uniform. I'm going to compress that in there, or press. And cut off the excess. And now I've got my bead that's going to fit inside my bezel that I made a minute ago. So with these polymer cane extruders, you can cut thin slices or thick slices, and it doesn't have to be a cane. You can use scrap cane, as you saw that I just did, and applied it to the inside of this cabochon, and then I can bake that. Moving right along. Take them out too, by the way. You don't want them drying in there because they will get stuck. And then you can use that for something else. Mist the inside of your cane extruder. Make sure it fits. Put it from the back side and compress. I do have a small plug that I made too, and when you make your plugs, you just use some clay that you want to use for your plug, and you cut off as much as you want. This was about 1/4 of an inch. They're all about 1/4 of an inch, and then I bake them. So once I have this compressed with my plug in, it's not going anywhere. Wipe off any water. These smaller ones are really easy to use. Again, I'm going to use the back of my hand, and I'm going to hold on to my tube, and with the rod I'm going to try to push it with my hand. I'm going to bring my hand maybe to the edge of my work surface and just squeeze ever so slightly, and then cut off the scrap piece that's on the end, or the throwaway piece. If I over compressed it, it might need a little encouraging with 2 hands, but typically 1 hand is all you need. Now, the lines are there for you to use from the back or from the front, but I think it's easier to use it from the back unless you're eyeballing it from the front. Sometimes I just eyeball it, and I'm going to show you how quickly you can cut these. Now if you want to use a base bead, you just take these then and apply them to your base bead. And you continue applying them all the way around, and you can make round beads or you can make square beads. And what's good about doing this cutting with the polymer cane extruder, you can go down very close to the very end of your polymer canes. And let's show you how low we can go with this cane that's in here. If you were to try to cut this cane with just your fingers, you would not get very far. I'm going to push that back in there. Too much. I pushed too much out. Usually when you get down to the wire, it's their cane is distorted anyway, but you can get right down to the edge of that. Bumped off one of the sides where they're not too sharp here so that we can compress this. I'm going to take several slices, and I'm going to show you how you can make a sheet of polymer clay. Let's take that excess piece off there. I might still use that. We're going to cut several of these. And sometimes if you push too much out, just push it back down and then slightly recompress it. You'll get the hang of it, but you have to be careful you don't push too hard. It's a very small amount that you're going to be pushing out, especially if you want them uniform. I let go of the back. I'm going to hold this with my thumb. Push that aside. Push it 1/4 or 1/16 of an inch. And I'm going to keep slicing. Now some water's coming out. I'm going to make sure I wipe that away. Check it once in a while. Maybe slightly compress it. And then move along and cut another 1/16 of an inch. The action of pushing your blade down does cause the clay sometimes to pull away. That's why you may have to recompress it. But that's why you need a sharp blade as well. I'm going to zoom you in a little bit more. I'm going to push it out 1/4 of an inch. Excuse me, 1/16 of an inch. Do it again. And I want you to see how close I'm getting with all of these slices. There's only 1/4 of an inch left of this cane in here. I'm going to try to get that last slice. And that last piece is too small to do anything to. So at this point we're going to butt these all up against each other. You can find the better side. Once I butt them all up against each other, I'm going to give it a light roll and then back it onto another sheet of rolled out polymer clay. So at this point I'm going to use my regular acrylic rod and gently, I should make sure I clean that. Here's a piece of clay that I rolled out previously. This is a little thick. I'm going to roll this out on my pasta machine and thin it out a little bit. I'll be right back. I placed this base clay on about a number 4. I didn't want it too thick. I'm going to use this now perhaps for some other pendant or earrings. I only put a small piece of the square cane in here. Don't overfill it. They have a tendency to get stuck, excuse me. So again, you missed your cane, your cane extruder. Insert your reduced cane. Put in my plug. Lightly compress it. I can't stress that enough. If you over compress, they will not come out as easy. Now we're going to take some slices of this square one. Take that little first piece off. I'm going to use the back of my cane extruder here and follow that. I can either follow the plug or I can follow the white part of the cane extruder. If I push out too much, I can push it back. I'm going to take 1/16 of an inch increments. And I pushed out too much, so I can recompress ever so slightly, tap tap, and cut as much as I want. So in demonstrating the small square polymer cane extruder, you extrude out how much clay you want. In this case, I took a base bead of about 1/4 of an inch. manipulate it to smooth out. You can make little earrings or bracelets with these.